Hey everybody, thank you for tuning in. I have a couple announcements to make. I'm going to be on the Typical Skeptic Podcast UFO Paranormal PSI channel later this week. I'm not sure when the video will be published, but we're going to be doing it Tuesday night, so that's a big positive. I also want to thank all of my new subscribers that I've gotten in the last few days since the publishing of the last couple of videos. Thank you so much for joining us. And I also want to thank those who had sent me an outpouring of support because of my health problems. I love you guys, and thank you for all of your kind words. Okay, let's get started on this. I just want to do a short video about some things about ET abductions. I want to talk about missing time. I want to talk about the implants, and I want to talk about scars that are left on abductees after these abductions. And I want to get into the reasons why they're taking place. The first topic that I want to cover is ET implants. Now, there's a lot of misconceptions about them. For one, people think that they're tracking devices. They also think that they have other purposes to them. And what I wanted to do is differentiate the difference between an etheric implant and a physical implant to let you know what they are. I'm not going to get into a lot of detail about etheric implants because that needs to be done in a separate video, which I'll be doing soon. So let's compare and contrast a little bit. Typically, the physical ET implants that people are finding and having removed are relatively inert. They don't show much technology. Now, there are some kinds that actually have shown the ability to migrate through the person's flesh to avoid removal. That's the exception to this. I've heard of other implants that had some type of a membrane or some sort of capability where they were neutral to the person's immune system, so they didn't trigger an immunoresponse. And then, of course, you have the typical ones, which just appear to be objects. Sometimes they may have an unusual composition, but it isn't too unusual. It's usually something based right here on the planet. It's so far, to my knowledge, they've never found anything that was completely alien. Now, those are just some facts about the typical ET implants that people are talking about. The other thing that's interesting to note before I really get into this is that when people do regressions, or if they just have spontaneous memory recall involving abductions, they usually remember being implanted with something. So the ETs have a reason for you to remember this, and there's a significance to the implant. And I'm going to get to that in a moment. But first I want to get into etheric implants. And I want to differentiate what the etheric implant does in comparison to the physical implant. The etheric implant is what controls our consciousness. It is the true tracking device. We all get one. Essentially, it's like tagging someone in a controlled environment. So I'm just going to leave it at that, and then we're going to get to that in a completely separate video. So I want to get back to the physical implants, and I want to point out some things. First of all, the implants literally look and feel and seem, upon analysis, that they do not have any real technological capability, with the exception of the ones that they can't find that go into the flesh, which is kind of an irrelevant topic in regard to the actual lab analysis. But what we're finding is there's really no technology present in these things. And there's a reason for that, and there's a reason for a lot of this stuff. And it has to do with human social engineering. So what I'm going to tell you is that, and this is probably the first time you've ever heard this, because it comes from a completely different perspective, one that needs to be discussed and needs to be adopted in this research field, which is that we are being socially engineered. So what I'm going to tell you is based on 48 years of extraterrestrial contact. So what I want to tell you is that these implants are in fact there simply to be found. They have no real world purpose other than for planetary social engineering purposes. The reason that people remember getting the implants, which can also be quite traumatic, because something foreign is being inserted into their body, and they're feeling pain, and they're also frightened because this is being done against their will, You know, there's a reason that they want you to know that these implants are there. So when you remember the implant, you'll then hopefully, in their eyes, seek to have it removed. The purpose of which is to inform the public that something is taking place with extraterrestrials. So in other words, let's just go back over this. The implants have no real world purpose other than to be a clue or a piece of evidence that substantiates the contactee's claims. And that's going to be something that's completely foreign to researchers because they think from a conventional point of view. And you can't do that. When you're dealing with extraterrestrial contact and you're trying to figure out what it is and what's going on, what you have to do is you have to first look at the impact that it has on society and then go back from there and examine the evidence to understand the modus operandi of the extraterrestrials. So let's talk, secondly, let's get into scars, scoop marks, evidence of procedures. Now, there's different procedures, obviously. There's skin sampling and so on. Sometimes they take sperm. This is for a reproductive program. This is for creating hybrids. And also, too, you have miscarriages or you have situations where women carry a baby, a hybrid fetus for a short period of time, and then they're abducted again and the fetus is removed. What you need to know is that they could create a hybrid program on a timeline consciousness simulation and run it independently of this timeline, complete the entire hybridization program, transfer the DNA sequences back to this timeline, create the hybrids that they need, and go on with it, and humanity and everyone in it would be none the wiser. So why would they be doing a hybridization program in the way that they are? It has to do with their interaction with us. It is part of a social engineering program combined with a hybridization program. They could do it in a clandestine manner, but they choose not to because they are conditioning us for contact. In the extraterrestrial civilizations, if there's a particular group or race that needs their genetics rebuilt, the other races join in and help them. And in a sense, they're making us do the same thing. So I also want to say that scoop marks and other scars are completely unnecessary. They could completely remove these. If they wanted to take a skin sample from you, scoop it out, they could restore your skin at the cellular level to where you couldn't detect a scar. In fact, they could cut your finger off and regrow it, your arm, your leg, whatever. They have the capability to do this. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of med beds. Well, this technology in the secret, that technology in the secret space program was much, much more advanced than on the ET side of things. In fact, I was told and shown that there's an actual handheld device that if you're in an extraterrestrial society and say you've gotten a mark or scar on your face, a pimple scar, something, you can literally put a device over your skin and it will completely eliminate the blemish at the cellular level. So this is something that's just a matter of a handheld device which would completely eliminate the scars, and they can return the person back without any evidence of being taken at all. But they don't want to do this. The purpose of these marks, the purpose of these scars is to leave clues. And the purpose for that is to get you, the abductee, to search, to take these clues and to search and figure out what's being done to you. And it's all part of a grand social engineering program. Now we're going to talk about timeline. No, sorry, not timelines, but missing time, which has to do with timelines. Now, they can abduct you, and I've talked to abductees. In fact, I talked to one person, he was from New York City. It was about 20 years ago, and he had told me that he had actually been abducted in broad daylight, meaning that you could be abducted in the middle of a crowd of people. You could be at a political rally. You could be at a concert. You could be at a picnic, and they can literally take you out of this timeline into a timeline consciousness simulation, perform everything that they need to do on you, and then put you back here. It's very easy to do once they've created a timeline consciousness simulation. By the way, if you're not familiar with that, check out my last video about timeline consciousness simulations and so forth. They can create a parallel timeline that they control, and they can put people in and out of it. And they can do everything that they want. So they can literally take you in broad daylight and use this technology. They can also do something which is a non-physical abduction, which involves an individual or group consciousness simulation. A lot of contactees talk about being abducted and invoking Jesus, and instantly the abduction scenario ends and they find themselves back in their bedroom, back in their chair, back in their car instantaneously. And it's because the actual abduction never took place in the physical sense. It was done completely based in consciousness. So basically the overall point of view that I'm trying to relay to you, or the concept is essentially is that we are being socially engineered, and they are engaging us in a controlled form of interaction. Everything that they do is a learning lesson for us. So when we hear people who have been abducted, regardless of the type of abduction it is, and they show evidence or they have missing time, that is simply to educate the public. So anyway, I just wanted to throw that at you, and I'm going to be building on this knowledge base, and I'm relaying to you over a period of time. So the videos are going to be short, but I'm going to be adding to it each and every day that I feel up to it. So I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, please post them in the comment section, and I will respond to them when I have enough. And I just wanted to say to everybody, love one another and treat each other like you would like to be treated. And I will see you all very soon. Take care.